Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we are getting into one of the goated JRPGs. We're talking about Trails from Zero. I'm so excited to talk about this one. Y'all know I've been on a big Trails journey this year. We've played the entire Sky trilogy. We've played Zero. I have played Azure. That's done with. I'm on CS3 right now. It has been absolutely wonderful, but I'm happy to say that Trails from Zero is easily in my top 3 Kaseki games. Now, before I get any deeper, we're in a kind of odd position here for this version of our So I Played for the First Time. For those who are uninitiated, I spoil the heck out of these games. I talk about them from top to bottom, gameplay, story, and everything. That's usually not a problem because the games I'm playing are old, and Trails from Zero is old. However, Falcom and NIS America are releasing these games as we release this video. So if you are watching this as sort of a review, I just want to let you know it has my full endorsement, but there's not necessarily a spoiler-free version here. It is full spoilers, so you have been warned. But before you go, I do want to put out one warning about the brand new versions of Trails from Zero. For those who have been tracking it, because it is a bit messy, just know that the PS4 version is inferior to the Nintendo Switch version. Now, while there are new features being added to all versions like turbo mode and so on and so forth, which are integral to the Trails experience, voice acting as well, that stuff is great. I'm happy it's there. However, when it comes to the PS4 version, they're using PSP textures. It's definitely graphically inferior. It's also not going to have the message log. That's because there were different developers for each of these versions, whereas the Geofront team had worked on the actual PC and Switch version, while this other PS4 version was coming from somewhere else. So just keep that in mind when purchasing, that you will want to get either PC or Switch. Trust me, do not overlook the message log. As a game that features lots of reading, yeah, you might need it sometimes. Plus, again, this game is beautiful in its own way. I love this art style. You should enjoy it at its best. That's my only buyer beware. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes. We'll talk about the story, the gameplay, bounce back and forth, beat for beat. If you're new here, you're into JRPG retrospectives, man, do we have some on the way, and I cannot wait for Spooktober, where we have some creepier games coming in. I'm not trying to be creepy myself, but I kind of look it. Anyway, some of you may be asking, because you are interested in this series before we begin in earnest, can I play this game if I haven't played any of the other Trails games? And you may be a little confused looking at the series. The short answer is maybe if you want to, but the reality is that you will be robbed of an unforgettable experience. I know that Trails as a series is a major commitment. You're talking about each of these JRPGs, not accounting for turbo mode, averaging about 40 to 50 hours and only getting longer as you get deeper into games like Cold Steel. I understand it is a commitment. What I will say is that every single person I've met who has played Trails from the start with Sky 1, Sky 2, Sky 3, and gotten to Zero, there has been zero regrets by making that decision. It is a commitment, but it's certainly one that you can do if you just chip away at it over time. It is an unforgettable journey, a worthwhile one, and I will say, without spoiling, that this game concludes one of the major plot threads that begins in Sky SC, the second game in the whole series. And it's one of those moments where you will be robbed of an unforgettable, heart-wrenching, tear-jerker type moment that, again, you'll just have it go right over your head. And that's what this series slowly evolves into. As someone who's now in Cold Steel 3, I've had dozens of moments going, wow, I wouldn't have had a single clue what they were talking about if I didn't just play these games. So it's probably in your best interest anyway to just take your time, chip through them, and do not deny yourself that the hook will happen. You will be grabbed. Anyone who has started with this series gets hooked because there's so much, and it's unlike any other series where you can just keep playing. It's not resetting characters, rebooting, remaking. It's a continuous story, insanely refreshing, very big on the franchise. Now, let's talk about Zero. The intro, Lloyd Banning's on the train. Pay attention. This is going to be more important than you realize. I won't say when, but this is important. So Lloyd Bannings is a graduate from the police academy. He has been assigned to the SSS, and there is a general lack of faith in the police force, and people are currently favoring the bracers. Now, this is immediately where you start to feel the impact of Sky, in my opinion. If you're hopping into Zero and you hear about bracers, you know who the police are, but who are these bracers? You don't have that context that you just played 3 games as a bracer, and people of the public have faith in them after the Orbital shutdown epidemic, where now the bracers have started to become the people who provide that security, that safety for the citizens, even of Crossbell, as they have their own Bracers Guild. So to me right there, I started to feel the importance of context. You have to remember my last 3 Trails games are just the building blocks of the entire series. So you have yet to see it all interweave. But now we're in Crossbell, a brand new setting, easily my favorite setting in Trails. This place rocks. I love how the camera shifts angles, like when you go in the back alley and it's almost a side scroller and they just play like a little jazz music and get your snap on. Love the vibe of Crossbell completely. This place is an economic powerhouse and it feels that way. Just artistically, the way it's designed, it feels like a really nice city. It feels like it's boasting with people and business. There's population everywhere. There's stores around every corner, places to explore. Absolutely love Crossbell City. Can't get enough of it. However, unfortunately, Crossbell is the heart of corruption, especially in its leadership. Again, stemming back to people's lack of faith in the police force, Ravache, aka the Mafia, has complete control of this corrupt leadership. So Crossbell has become stagnant. They're caught in this political warfare right now where they're pawns to Liberal, aka the setting for the first 3 Sky games, as well as the Empire, which you'll learn more about in Cold Steel as well as Azure. So I just love the way that they're setting up all of Crossbell, right? They're clearly useful because of the economy, because of the ICB, but at the same time, they're stuck because they're not big enough to defend themselves. Again, this is how you do world building, in my opinion, the right way. A lot of Falcom's world building, and I think Sky 1, Cold Steel 1, it's very slow, methodical, and sometimes unnecessarily so. I feel like they could do a better job with it, and Zero is that perfect example where interesting things can happen and move the story forward while you build the world. It is possible, believe it or not. Continuing on, you start to meet all of your various party members, such as Ellie, who's connected to the mayor, so you have a direct tie to some of the corruption in Crossbell, if you will. She's still a bit undecided on being a part of the SSS and wants to make Crossbell a better place. But, she feels like it's a lost cause because she never knows how to do any of this. So a lot of her adventure is growing into a more powerful character. I would say, compared to the entire cast throughout the Crossbell arc, Ellie, to me, is one of the weaker characters. She has her moment early on and then just kind of fades out, and she's just there as a support member. And I like her, don't get me wrong, but just when it comes to the next 2, Randy, Tio, this is the duo. So Randy is a former member of the Crossbell Guardian Force. You think you know something about him. He's goofy, he's lovable, he's always got something sly to say. But this man's backstory, as they build it, so tragic and so fascinating, but none other than Tio takes the cake. Tio is at the heart of this story, and it's why it works. Why is that? It's because of the D, therefore G cult. This is a religious cult that worships the devil. They apparently had killed Guy Bannings, Lloyd's older brother, which is one of the reasons why he enlisted in the police force. The SSS is a product of Guy's wishes, so it was really nice to see that come full circle. But now Lloyd is personally motivated to find out, who is D, therefore G, and why did you kill Guy Bannings? You actually find out, though, that they were experimenting on little kids like Tio, and yes, Guy had broken in to one of their facilities and saved her. So now Tio is directly connected to Lloyd. I'm like, oh my God, this is peak right now. This feels so, well, I shouldn't say feels good. I feel horrible about what's happening, but watching everything interconnect so naturally, it's hard to do that. But as a player, it feels great to experience that type of fiction. Now, speaking of these very unfortunate experiments being performed on the children, this is a good time to talk about Gnosis. Gnosis is a drug that's presented to the player as something perhaps the Mafia is peddling. It's one of the core mysteries of the game, and it's one of the pieces of the narrative that I think makes it rooted in reality, despite the fact that I'm shooting fire out of my hands, we're flipping around, beating up the biggest baddies. This plot element really does ground the game a lot more for me. Now, Gnosis is of course very important because you know it's at the center of the mystery and why things are happening, and it turns out that's exactly the case when the reveals begin to happen. You learn there are two forms of Gnosis. There's blue Gnosis, there's red Gnosis. I think of blue Gnosis almost like the movie Limitless, where everyone's capabilities are completely heightened, whereas red Gnosis, you'll see throughout the story, there are characters like the Mayor's Aide, which go ballistic, and when they do so, you're thinking, well, this person's not going to be powerful. I mean, you're such a no-name character, but they are, and it was a really smart usage of a unimportant character, if you will, and presenting what red Gnosis could do for someone because it unlocks demonization. Now, again, the way they were able to access these drugs is because of the experiments on the children to get closer to the Zero Child. But you see how that can quickly spiral out of control, and also how it's gradually making its way into Crossbell, furthering that corruption, where there was even a point someone was doing gambling and they were just insanely lucky. You thought it was a boring fetch quest here in Maine's mining village, but it turns out that this very unlucky person had suddenly just been on their game. So something funny was up, and I absolutely love this element again because I think it managed to ground the world and lift up the story even further. Now, pause. You're also going to see throughout the story, especially if you explore off the beaten path sometimes, Estelle and Joshua are here in Crossbell. They're hanging around. Why is that? They're looking for Ren. Ren ran away at the end of Sky 3, my current favorite Trails game, and they're chasing her down until she can accept that they're her family. They're not trying to press her into it, but they're trying to ease her into it. And so you now know they're sort of picking up where they left off in Sky 3, and that doesn't necessarily need a full game because they gradually make their way, all three of these characters, into the party with interactions. And oh man, some of the ways that you learn about Ren and her family, the way you see Estelle and Joshua chasing her down, and then you learn about the connection to Stardor 15. Now, I don't like to scold the Retro Rebound audience, but I read the comments to my Sky 3 review before diving into this one. I was mighty displeased by the amount of assumptions I had saw in the comment section. I am not immune to criticism. It is what builds the best channels. But a lot of people had stuff to say because I didn't talk about Stardor 15. Little did you know, treat me like Toshihiro Kondo. I got a plan, man, right? He's planning the whole series. Maddie's got a plan for his whole coverage. When I experienced that, I had already moved on to Zero. I was already almost done with it. And your boy knew the connections right then and there. The seeds were planted. We would talk about Stardor 15 in Zero, where I thought it was a lot more relevant. Of course, I love the backstory they gave Ren. It's tragic. It's dark. It's disheartening. It's sad. It's depressing. But I thought that discussion was a better fit here in Zero, where you see it come to life. So, with that, let's talk about Stardor 15. For those who don't know, at the end of Sky 3, you can, go through all these doors throughout the whole game, by the way, but one of the main ones is Stardor 15, considered the must-see door, and for good reason, because it does have heavy implications on things that you'll see, face-to-face in Zero. Now, what you'll learn is that Ren was effectively in a house of children that were, we'll say, being taken advantage of by adults, being abused by adults, being experimented on by adults. And it turns out that what was happening there was actually one of the sites for the D, therefore G cult. And it wasn't until Joshua, and I believe it was Louvet, came in. I can't remember who the second person was, but I think it was Louvet, came in and killed everyone as well and took Ren out, that she then became a part of Ouroboros. So now you have that pocket of storytelling, and it's there, it exists. But then when you learn about D, therefore G, you learn about Tio's connection, and then it wraps all the way back to Ren. Now things have truly connected. This is when Trails is a pure vibe, because now everything is coming together. And I just Oh my gosh. What a moment learning about this. To me, this is one of the biggest, if not the biggest revelation in the entire series so far, was the fact that what you saw in that star door for Ren and her backstory that led her here was actually something Tio experienced, which was connected to Guy's potential death. I mean, oh wow, it is seriously impressive storytelling here. And then when you tack on top of this with Ren's parents, as I was talking about earlier, where you learn that they're actually not bad people at all, that they entrusted Ren to a friend, and she had been sold off, if you will, we'll say, to, we're going to call it the ring. And then the parents had blamed themselves, and when they were about to take their own lives, that they had another kid on the way named Colin. It was again this true moment of interconnectivity. This game, more often than not, is Sky 4. I'm sorry, I know I don't want to do any of the main characters in this game a disservice, but I feel like Tio's backstory, even Lloyd's backstory to some extent, almost purely exists to lift up those who are from the original Sky trilogy, more than building them out. Don't get me wrong, they're amazing characters, but I do feel like this is truly Sky 4, and I love it for that. Now, when you do learn a bit about the D, therefore G cult, perhaps one of the most shocking revelations when Sergey is explaining to you everything that happened is you see right there Cassius Bright. And the game also alludes to the fact that one of the key villain groups that you do interact with in the Sky trilogy, Ouroboros, played a factor in helping take down D, therefore G. This is one of those moments, again, where prior context makes Trails from Zero even better as a story, because you have already interacted with Ouroboros. You've learned some of them have heart, like Luve. You've also learned some of them are just cold-blooded. You think of Weissman from the first game, second game, and so on and so forth, right? But you find out that the Bracers, the Crossbell Guardian Force, Ouroboros, everyone has teamed up to take on D, therefore G cult. Which, by the way, I have no idea what right now D, therefore G means. But you team up to take on this cult. I just think that is, again, an amazing reflection on the lore, where you look at that and think, oh my god, even the baddest of bad were trying to take out this cult. They must have been horrible. And when you do learn about the crimes they had committed, specifically to younger children, it explains why, yes, even the very worst people in this universe wanted to take out the cult, because they were somehow even worse. Now, this cult is led by Dr. Gunter. I'll always remember the moment I learned this man was the villain, because I play this game on Discord, all these Trails games, because I have a bunch of Trails super fans in my friend group, so I'm streaming it to them. They want to see my reactions in real time. And I joked all game about how Gunter, or Gunter, I think it is, was actually the main villain here. You know, this guy's just chilling, fishing when he's supposed to be at his job. I'm like, dog, you're a murderer. Come on. Absolutely. So, yeah, turns out he is the head of this part of the cult here. And I remember when I found out, because you were on the phone with Dudley, he went, oh, him, huh? Yeah, about that guy. And I went, oh, no. No, we got to go. We got to go fast. We got to go fast. And I sprinted to St. Ursula Medical College as fast as humanly possible, because I had my feelings, but it was a joke. This is the second time I've accidentally done that, because I joked my way into Weissman over in Sky. I actually did it in Azure. I did it here. I might have a knack for accidentally predicting Trails reveals, but continuing on. So, now the city is plummeting into chaos, because Gunter, we're going to call him Gunter, is controlling everyone from afar. This is a really awesome moment where you're defending IBC. It's like a multi-wave battle. You're fighting the Crossbell Guardian Force. So Crossbell is effectively collapsing upon itself. Crossbell is looking defenseless as they burn down their own city. Again, major implications for the future here, so always worth paying attention to. Eventually, you make your way to where the D, therefore G cult is hiding out, and Estelle and Joshua are with you. They weren't there in the beginning, though. Game hid it from you. They're there now. This is another important note, and they are busted, by the way. It was great to just have them along for the ride. That was a cool moment, but just having Lloyd, Tio, and then Joshua and Estelle together is a power trip unlike anything else. Just the game was mega easy from that point onwards. So, yeah, the game runs its course to the final dungeon. And then Estelle and Joshua finally catch Ren at the end. Again, putting the bow on top to Sky 4. It is in that moment there where Estelle hugs Ren and says, got you, or found you, whatever it is, that you go, yep. And that arc is now concluded. And a fantastic arc at that. Absolutely loved it, especially the final shot where you see the whole crew from Sky, from Crossbell, and you see Dudley pushing up his glasses, the whole anime glare. Like, what's wrong with this man? Who hurt Dudley? Why is he always so angry? But Dudley's a great character as well. So yeah, of course, there's also Kia. Kia is a young girl you rescue from an auction held by Ravachi. I feel like Kia sort of fades into the background as the team cheerleader and the adorable, loving support character rather than truly building her out. You just know based off the little messages you're getting throughout the game, something's up with her. What you have to treat, I'd say, Crossbell as, much like I treated Cold Steel, is a two-part story. You got to let it all play out like CS1 to CS2. Although it's not as abrupt of a cliffhanger as CS1, Zero, I'm sorry, does leave you with a question mark big enough to say, I need to see the rest of this through, which you should. Azure is a great game. However, let's move on to the gameplay. We have yet to even talk about that. So there have been massive improvements here. Combo crafts. How is this not in any other part of the Trails universe? Like, I have friends who are up to Kuro now, and that is the newest release in Japan. And combo crafts aren't even back then. How is this just a Crossbell exclusive feature? So for those who don't know, it's just like casting an S-Craft, right? You use this really beefed up attack and you wipe out a whole range of enemies, or you can res all your friends. Depending on each character, the S-Craft's different. So now combo crafts make it where maybe Randy and Tio can combine for a special attack, or Ellie and Lloyd, and so on and so forth. And they have different radius and different effects and different amounts of damage. I mean, it's just, why is this not in other games? It's such a great feature. I can only hypothesize that maybe they thought it's kind of broken next to S-Crafts. There were times I was choosing combo crafts when I had the critical registered, when I had my damage buffed over the S-Craft, and maybe Falcom didn't want that. That's like my one guess, especially because it'll use exactly 100, where let's say I had 146 CP, and I decided to pull my S-Craft. It would use all of that and do very little additional damage unless it was fully at 200. So maybe that's what they considered. I'm not sure, but I don't know how S-Crafts aren't in the game. This is a wonderful mechanic. There's also rush attacks. So, you know, everyone will start just beating down on enemies. This is another great addition to the combat system. Advantages are here. So hitting enemies from behind gives you that extra advantage, even a triple advantage. You love to see that. There are support turns. This is another thing I really do love to see. I don't know if this, I don't remember, because I'm thinking now about CS3 that I'm playing now, and I don't think your support members hop in, but I digress. What this is let's say you have, of course, as always, your party of 4, and then you have 2 party members in the back. Now those 2 party members in the back can actually hop in on the off chance and do a skill, and it's so clutch. I mean, there was one time I had this was Azure, but I had a certain character, I don't want to spoil it yet because we'll talk about it, but I had a certain character come in and heal twice in a row just by a complete chance. One of them was a crit, completely saved the fight, and it was awesome. It felt like my buddies were actually joining in to help me. So I feel like the support turns are also a fantastic addition. There's some kind of strange creature design I noticed while I was going through all these combat segments. There was like a banana, a pineapple, kind of uninventive. It just felt like they were there for me to wallop on. I do sometimes wish that, you know, Trails got a little more inventive with its enemy design. I feel like the Sky 3 final boss was one of their best designed encounters. I don't want to get into why. Of course, I have that in the video itself if you want to check it out. But I do feel like some of the encounters leave a little bit to be desired. They almost feel like you're supposed to breeze through them just to get to the next point in the story, especially when turbo mode's on. And there's a balance there. Like, you feel there's a power fantasy. So is it really such a bad thing? I wouldn't say so. But I do feel like, at least artistically, some of the enemy design here could be, I don't want to say less ridiculous, but try a little bit. I don't know how else to put it. There's also this cool little, this is part of the story, so maybe I should have talked about it there. but I almost consider it a gameplay element. So I noticed, comparatively speaking to all the other Trails games, that this one offered you dialogue choices from time to time when you were specifically deducing what was happening in a crime. I really personally like this because it felt like you were actually a detective, a part of a special support team that was breaking down the mystery. And it felt almost rewarding when I was picking and choosing responses and putting that mystery together. So I like it, even though it's just effectively selecting dialogue. All the other Trails games just have the characters talking, interacting. It's not an RPG in that sense, but this one felt like you were in the shoes of a detective putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And then, how can I ever talk about Trails if I don't talk about the OST? Oh my God, all the different music for the roads, like On the Green Road, the back alley that I talked about, the boss music, Firm Strength. Oh my Lord, Falcom, JDK, Falcom Sound Team, JDK, oh my God, they are on one. I mean, look, I'm a huge Persona fan. I don't know if Persona will ever be topped because it's just such a vibe, but I gotta say, Falcom's got a special music team that should not be ignored. So ladies and gentlemen, those are all my thoughts on Trails from Zero, covered from top to bottom. One of my favorite JRPGs I've played, really. I just think it's a nice, self-contained story. It's a nice length at about 40-ish hours, technically 32 to 33 if you're using turbo mode throughout combat like I typically do. The way it interconnects Sky 3, the Sky characters, builds them up, concludes their arc while also establishing a new set, plus the amazing setting of Crossbell City, then the political tension that's there, the corruption that's there that feels tangible. It just is such a well-built game. The amount of new assets there, it is a truly strong effort from Falcom, and they nailed it here. So highly recommend. If for some reason you watched this and you decided I'm going to spoil the whole thing for myself, I actually think this sounds cool, might go back and play Sky, and by the time you're done with Sky, maybe you forgot about what Maddie said. The answer is yes, you should do that. This is such a rewarding JRPG series. And with that, I leave it in your hands. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll talk with all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.